He wants to take this land from us, not with guns, but with greed. And the man behind it? He doesn't just frighten people. He terrifies even the fearless. I've never met a man who scares me, someone confesses. He scares me to death. This is not just another episode. 1923, Season 2, Episode 6. The mountain teeth of monsters is the calm before the storm. Or maybe it's the storm itself. As the frontier begins to crumble under the weight of progress, betrayal, and bloodshed, every thread of this story tightens. Spencer Dutton faces a hostile America. Alexandra is trapped in a foreign prison system. Teonna Rainwater is running, again, from the evil that once caged her. But what happens when running is no longer an option? When justice, love, and legacy hang in the balance, some must fight, while others fall. This episode isn't just about survival. It's about what it costs to stay human in a world that's becoming monstrous. Today, we begin making Montana a playground for the elite. Those chilling words mark the dawn of something dark, an era where power wears a polished smile and destruction comes in tailored suits. The enemies of the Duttons no longer hide in the shadows. They stand boldly in the daylight, using the law, money, and influence as their weapons. But Montana is not just land, it's legacy. And when that legacy is threatened, the mountains themselves seem to rise in protest. He wants to take this place from us. That's not just paranoia. It's prophecy. And it's beginning to come true. The man behind the curtain is a different kind of monster, one who doesn't need blood on his hands to destroy a family. It's enough for him to see others bleed, to see them lose everything they've built with sweat, sorrow, and sacrifice. That kind of power doesn't bark, it bites. And when it bites, it doesn't let go. I've never met a man who scares me, someone says with trembling resolve. He scares me to death. Picking up the pieces, Episode 6, The Mountain Teeth of Monsters, picks up in the brutal wake of Episode 5, Only Gunshots to Guide Us. The chaos hasn't settled. In fact, it's only thickened. Father Renaud and Marshal Kent are no longer just threats lurking in the distance. They are the jaws of the system, snapping shut around Teonna Rainwater and her small group of survivors. Teonna, her father, and Pete find themselves on the run. Again, this time in unforgiving territory, where each mile they gain could also be their last. They've escaped the mission school, escaped the beatings, the rapes, the lies, but they haven't escaped justice. Not the kind that heals, but the kind that hunts. And while they run, the mountains watch. The very land they seek to survive on may either offer refuge or reveal its own monsters. Alexandra's fight for freedom back in Europe, Alexandra thought. The worst was over when she stood beside Spencer Dutton. She was wrong. After surviving an assault from a fellow train passenger, an act of bravery and self-defense, Alexandra finds herself detained by authorities who see a foreign woman, not a victim. Her screams, her wounds, her testimony, none of it matters in a place where the system protects the wrong people. Now she sits in a cold, unfamiliar cell, alone. No family, no protection. And with each passing day, her chances of securing freedom dwindle. This is not just a test of survival, it's a test of identity, of resolve. Can a woman who fought for love now find the strength to fight a system designed to silence her? Spencer Dutton's return. Meanwhile, Spencer Dutton finally sets foot back in the United States, but it's not a warm homecoming. Haunted by memories of war, love, and betrayal, Spencer returns to a country that has changed. Or maybe he has. Instead of reuniting with Alexandra, he finds himself immediately at odds with law enforcement. Pulled into a tangle of accusations, bureaucratic red tape, and lingering suspicions, Spencer is no longer just a hero returning from exile. He's a man under threat, under surveillance, and under fire. Will he find Alexandra? Will he be able to clear his name? Or will the walls of this new war close in around him before he can even take a breath? The mountain tightens. Its grip, what connects all of these storylines, is not just struggle. It's tension. Episode 6 is not about resolution. It's about pressure and how it breaks people. Every character is standing at a precipice. For Teonna, the next confrontation could mean life or death. She's tired of running. Her father is weary. Pete is wounded. The hunters are getting closer, and the question looms. When the chase ends, will there be a fight or a funeral? For Alexandra, the battle shifts from physical to psychological. Detained without allies, she now faces a justice system that doesn't recognize her pain. With no resources and dwindling hope, she must dig deeper than ever before. For Spencer, the war comes home. But this time, the enemy wears badges and holds court orders. Can he adapt? Can he fight a war that doesn't play by any rules he knows? A reckoning is coming. Rather than diffusing the chaos, Episode 6 throws gasoline on the fire. It doesn't offer solace. It sharpens every blade and doubles every cost. The Duttons, Teonna, Alexandra, they are all pawns in a larger game. But some pawns learn to move like kings. The title itself, The Mountain Teeth of Monsters, isn't just poetic. It's prophetic. The mountains of Montana are no longer just the setting. They are alive with conflict, soaked with blood, and echoing with the cries of the oppressed. Monsters don't always growl. Sometimes they smile. And sometimes they wear the uniform of lawmen, priests, and businessmen. Episode 6 isn't just another chapter. It's the beginning of the end. For innocence, for comfort, and maybe, for some, for life. Mark your calendars, 1923, Season 2, Episode 6. The Mountain Teeth of Monsters will premiere on March 30th, 2025. This is not an episode to casually watch. This is one to feel, to hold your breath through, to scream at the screen for every second counts, every line matters. And with each passing scene, we get closer to a finale that promises either redemption or ruin. Final thoughts as the enemies close in, as the terrain gets more dangerous, and as choices become harder. One thing is clear. 1923 is no longer just a show about survival. It's about transformation, about who people become when everything is stripped away, when monsters rise, and the only way to fight is to become something just as fierce. The Duttons are backed into a corner. Teonna is running out of time. Alexandra is trapped in a foreign nightmare. And Spencer? He must decide if he's willing to lose everything to win this war. This episode promises no peace, but it promises truth. Raw, brutal, unrelenting truth. That's all for today. But the mountain still waits. And the monsters? They're just getting started. We'll see you next time. Episode 6 of 1923 Season 2, titled The Mountain Teeth of Monsters, emerges not as a mere continuation of the Dutton family saga, but as a meditation on systemic oppression, psychological war, and the quiet decay of American ideals under the strain of greed and colonization. Taylor Sheridan crafts a bleak, deliberate hour that functions less as plot progression and more as an atmospheric tightening of the noose. This is storytelling that thrives in its silences, sharpens its edges in the dark, and dares its audience to sit with discomfort. A multi-front struggle. This episode diverges from the typical linear frontier drama by weaving three core narratives, each echoing a different kind of captivity. Teonna Rainwater is again on the run, haunted by the colonial brutality of religious institutions and the false promise of safety. Alexandra, alone in a foreign land, is criminalized for defending herself and must navigate a justice system that barely acknowledges her humanity. And Spencer Dutton, returning home, is confronted by the realization that the battlefield he left has only evolved, now dressed in bureaucracy, corruption, and concealed hostility. Each of these arcs explores a different permutation of injustice, racial, gendered, institutional. And yet, all are held together by a single binding thread, power, and the grotesque lengths to which people go to protect or exploit it. The monster in broad daylight, the title, The Mountain Teeth of Monsters, is both metaphor and indictment. It speaks to the land's quiet fury, Montana itself becoming a character, no longer a refuge but a battleground. But more importantly, it reframes what we've come to understand as monstrous. Here, monsters do not lurk in shadows. They operate in daylight, with polished boots and government authority. They carry Bibles, wear badges, sit in courtrooms. Sheridan forces us to confront the horror of respectability politics. How the greatest atrocities can be committed without blood, using law, influence, and silence. The most chilling moment of the episode might be a simple confession. I've never met a man who scares me. He scares me to death. It is a line that distills the entire atmosphere of this episode into 10 words. The antagonist in question isn't a man of violence, but of vision. A cold, calculated economic predator who seeks to transform Montana into a playground for the elite. His weapon isn't a gun, it's capitalism wrapped in entitlement. Teonna's arc. Running from shadows and systems, Teonna's storyline remains the emotional backbone of this series. Her escape from the mission school in earlier episodes seemed to promise liberation, but this episode painfully illustrates that survival is not linear. Her journey through unforgiving terrain becomes symbolic of indigenous survival itself, relentless, intergenerational, and perpetually undermined by systems that refuse to see Native people as fully human. The pursuit by Father Renaud and Marshall Kent is not just a physical threat. It represents the church and state working in tandem. Two of the most powerful institutions in American history, chasing a girl whose very existence is an act of defiance. The camera lingers on her exhaustion, on her father's desperation, and on Pete's slow unraveling. There is no triumph here, only the cruel reminder that justice, for some, has always meant punishment. Alexandra's nightmare, a study in patriarchal violence. If Teonna's journey critiques racial violence, Alexandra's arc interrogates gender violence and the illusion of justice. What begins as a shocking self-defense moment aboard a train spirals into a Kafkaesque nightmare. Despite being the victim of assault, Alexandra is imprisoned, not just physically, but narratively. She is silenced, isolated, and processed through a legal system designed to protect aggressors, not survivors. Her imprisonment in a foreign land evokes an unsettling reality for women throughout history. Survival is not enough. You must survive quietly, politely, without resistance. Alexandra, who has shown courage and resolve in past episodes, now faces a subtler enemy: indifference. Her fate hangs not on what she did, but how the world chooses to interpret her defiance. Spencer's return. Home is no refuge, Spencer. Dutton's long-anticipated return to the U.S. is anything but victorious. He arrives not to embrace but to suspicion, not to sanctuary but surveillance. Sheridan cleverly uses Spencer as a reflection of the forgotten veteran, a man who gave everything to a nation that barely acknowledges him. His battles abroad now seem more navigable than the quiet war of policy, ownership, and paranoia back home. What's remarkable about Spencer's arc is the sense of estrangement. He is American, but no longer fits the America he left. And in that disconnect, we see Sheridan's broader commentary, that sometimes the true frontier isn't land, but identity. How do you return home when home is the enemy? Direction, pacing, and the power of stillness. Sheridan's directorial style in this episode is austere. Long, meditative shots of snow-covered landscapes, tight close-ups that force us into characters, emotional claustrophobia, and a deliberate pace that reflects the suffocating reality these characters endure. For some viewers, this episode may feel slow, but slowness, here, is the point. It is the grinding, unbearable pressure that precedes the inevitable collapse. The violence is less overt, but far more psychological. The threat doesn't come from bullets, it comes from documents, courtrooms, and public apathy. There are no grand speeches, no dramatic standoffs, just quiet suffering, and the creeping realization that the monsters have already won the first round. Final thoughts. A slow-burning tragedy. The mountain teeth of monsters is not designed to entertain. It is designed to disturb. It asks difficult questions about who holds power, and what happens when morality is no longer a societal priority. The Duttons may remain at the center of the story, but this episode reminds us that the land they fight for is soaked not just in history, but in horror. Sheridan continues to challenge the mythology of the American West, peeling back its romanticism to reveal something colder, more brutal. This episode doesn't roar, it whispers. And in those whispers, we hear the truth. that the greatest threats to freedom don't always wear masks. Sometimes they wear suits. And they smile.